Hello everyone and welcome to the second panel discussion brought to you by Minds of IIM. Well, I believe it's been a pretty lazy Sunday for you all, and we'll put in an effort in the next 30 minutes to make it a little more informative one. Well, the customer wins you profits. At least that's what we have understood, and that's what the firms have even come to respect. This is a very important dictum to be followed in the business world. Competition to attract and lock in customers is intense in the business. Customers want highest value at the lowest price, something which many firms have misunderstood as an excuse to cut prices in the short term to garner market share. A price cut done on similar thinking lines might be misconstrued as an opening salvo, which prompts competitors to follow suit and slash prices, thus provoking a price war. The long run is not so rosy because it changes the dynamics of the competition within an industry as well as the profit margins available. So price wars are a way of business in today's world. That is what we can surmise. Today we shall try to understand the features of a price war and also explore examples and ways to understand how they can be tackled. Here today we have three speakers from different domains. First we have Mr. Saurabh Snehvrat, who is a FPM student. Welcome, sir. Then we have Mr. Pulkit Bohra, who is a second year PGDM student. Welcome, Mr. Pulkit. And then we have Mr. Nachiketa, who is a first year PGDM student. Welcome, Nachiketa. So the first question that we'll be attempting to discuss is that what exactly are price wars? We are looking to understand what is the underlying logic behind starting a price war and why, and I mean, what are the features of price wars? So maybe Mr. Saurabh Snehvrat could start by throwing some light on it.
Okay, thank you. And before I start, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here. As a table setter, I would like to distinguish price wars with what we call as price competition. So what we'll see is price competition is something we see very commonly, but price wars are little different in the continuum in the sense that price wars are price cutting momentum of competing firms which are unsustainable in the long run. So if you differentiate it from healthy price competition or normal price competition, price wars would have certain characteristics which would make them different. One would be obviously unsustainability. The other could be undesirability as well. A majority of the firms participating in a price war might not be desiring to participate in it. The focus in a price war is shifted primarily on the competition. So in a sense, the consumers, the other stakeholders go in a background, and the competition between the firms become the focal point.
So basically everyone is just talking about slashing prices, yes, and they are keeping the customer's interest on the background for some point of time at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
So generally we see during a price war a faster pace of pricing interactions. So, and generally these pricing interactions will be downward. Right. So, sometimes we will see that even industry norms are violated. It might, in some cases in price wars, there might not be an intention. There might be unintended, price war might be an unintended consequence which every competitor then has to deal with. So I think this can start as we can start as a table setter for the discussion.
Mr. Pulkit.
Thank you, Abhishek. Warm greetings to everyone. And as Saurabh mentioned, yes, actually, price wars have been a very good tool which has been used by many companies to get into the market, set up their base, undercut competition. At the same time, there have been some long-term and short-term advantages that companies have gained. When I talk of short-term advantages, probably the increasing their revenues or a sudden increase in the customer base. These are some things that companies look at. But in the longer term, probably it's deteriorating for the whole market in a way because, of course, consumers hop between players as and when prices decrease and the value proposition which is being offered to them remains the same. However, you should also understand that in longer term, none of the players would be able to sustain these prices. And probably it is the customers who are going to lose on the values that they might have rendered from the services of the companies. So that's what my take would be, that yeah, there are challenges when there are price wars, but still I feel that there are various implications of a price war which could be positive as well for certain companies, which we can discuss at large in the subsequent discussion.
Mr. Nachiketa.
I'd like to thank you for inviting me to be a part of this discussion, and my greetings in regards to everyone. I would like to start by quoting Henderson in his paper titled Price Wars, published in 1997, wherein he said that price wars in an industry are the failure of managerial rationality.
Right.
So, like, when we think of it as that way, is that why is there a failure of managerial rationality in the case of price wars? So, if I could dwell on it further, then I would like to say that most of the times, like Sir very rightly said, that sometimes there is an unintended, price wars start as an unintended consequence of events. So suppose if there is a promotional strategy, there is a short-term promotional strategy, it can be misconstrued by the other business competitors that they have started a price war. So there are a lot of factors, and I think that we can, as in when we go on with the discussion further, we can
build up the points
and we can discuss more about them.
Okay, so I guess we are pretty clear now what price wars are actually. So we know the features of price wars, and they are pretty different from price competition. Let's make that very clear at the outset, so that not to cloud your judgment of price wars as we go along. Now the second question we are trying to discuss is, what are the reasons for price wars? Why do companies or why do firms actually indulge, even inadvertently, why would they indulge in price wars when they know that the long-term implications of price wars are not that good? So I think Mr. Pulkit Bohra could provide us some inputs here.
Sure. Well, I believe that there are a lot of reasons why companies indulge into price wars. And first, we can also analyze, where do price wars actually take place? What is the industry setup? What is the background? And primarily, I believe that the settings where there is a commoditization, there is less of product differentiation, and that proves to be the breeding ground for a price war, because companies know that there is less to differentiate, and if we reduce price, we are going to succeed on the basis of a price advantage that we get. At the same time, when there are new players trying to enter the new markets, they use it as a penetrating strategy. Yes. It's a penetration pricing is a very common norm. There's nothing which is known about that company being new in the market. Product offerings, loyalty, services, everything is unknown to the customers. And pricing is one of the ways where they can initiate the interaction and relationship with the customer and then build upon it later on.
So could we, sorry to interrupt you, could we relate this to, in some way, to predatory pricing? Like suppose a firm is trying to enter a market, and then established firms then cut their prices in such a way that the new firms are not even able to cover their costs. Could we in some way relate to it?
That's a tackling strategy which the existing firms would certainly use in order to stop the advances of a new firm. Right. Because these new firms inadvertently would be capturing or eating of the market share of the existing firms.
They would be driving down the margins of the industry as well.
And just one more point which I want to put here was that these price wars could be initiated, as we mentioned initially, could be unintentional in nature or could be driven by a small short-term needs. For example, if I talk about the recent price cuts that we had in the airline industry.
Yes.
We had 50% price cuts initiated by SpiceJet, very soon followed by Air India, Indigo and all other airlines. Then we had the second round of price cut, which was 30% on the base fares. And all of it, if we go by the stats, increased the seats filling by 45%, which relatively in these months is very lean and about 15 to 20% occupancy for the advance bookings. And one of the reasons which was cited was because SpiceJet was supposed to make payments for delivery of an aircraft. Okay. So it could generate cash from these advance bookings, and it could pay for those bookings. So this was not intentionally a price war, but a money-raising strategy by a firm.
Which was misunderstood by others as launching of a price war. It's a very basic problem with the whole industry. Mr. Nachiketa, you have anything to
Yeah,
add?
so like he very rightly said that there'll be some reasons why a company, initiates a price war if it actually is rationally initiating it. So I would like to just stress upon some of them. The first one can be that a company is trying to enter or is a part of an industry where the current profit margin is actually quite high. So see, if the current profit margin is actually quite high, they can just cut on their bottom lines and ensure they retain their profitability while they are trying to capture more and more of the market share. Okay.
But that also raises questions on their ability to produce products or services at lesser cost.
Hmm.
So, assuming that's happening, this is what we are going to discuss.
Yeah. So that's very rightly, as you very rightly put it. Another thing is that some companies can achieve economies of scale.
Yes.
There is a lot of scope for economies of scale. So they might want to increase their sales, increase their revenue at all costs just to achieve those economies of scale, just to drive down that bottom line,
Exactly.
like you had discussed. Another thing is that if a company has a lot of products to sell, if they have already stocked up a lot on the inventory side and they are not able to sell them, so they can obviously, even though they are taking a cut on their margin, they can actually initiate a price war and get deeper, get smudged into that.
Smudged into the whole. Mr. Saurabh?
So, couple of very nice points by the two speakers. What I want to add is sometimes this misreading and misjudgment plays a huge portion, huge part in striking up a price war. I can go to an example in the 1980s, and this might seem funny now, but there was this technical trade journal which published the volumes of a particular industrial equipment industry, and what they found out was due to a mistake they raised the volumes up 15% from what it was. So they misquoted the volumes, and because of this misquoting, there was an actual price war that started for a whole year.
Okay.
Because everybody thought that they were losing market share without knowing about what was actually happening. After 3 months, the journal actually corrected itself, but still the price war went on for another 9 months. So
because the effects are partially irreversible by
yeah,
then.
yeah. So
Okay.
that kind of gives us an idea about the misreading and the misjudgment portion. And we see many examples where this has been the case, where we do not understand why a competitor is acting in a particular way, and that could trigger a price war. So uncertainty in the market,
Yes.
Any shocks, and also emotional. Now we are get into the emotional behavioral domains as well.
Business, yes.
Managers are under so much stress
Yes.
that once they get even a half-baked signal that some competitor is doing something, they are bound to react to it. And sometimes they might overreact, which might trigger this downward spiral. So, as we said, there are some predatory pricing issues, there is uncertainty, but we cannot ignore the misreading and the misjudgment also, as we have seen through the examples through time.
So it basically brings to fore the issue of rationality.
Yeah.
So you need to all the theories of price wars and all oligopolistic theories, game theories, based on the assumption that everyone acts rationally. That goes for a toss in the real business world.
Yeah, I think there have been attempts to remodel those attempts, or like game theory has been remodeled
According to behavioral,
to introduce some behavioral
Right,
aspects.
right.
But there is a problem because you cannot really model completely the behavioral aspects of managerialism.
Some part of it has to be left to
Yeah, so
the real happenings of the business world.
yeah, right.
So that's a very nice perspective you've got on price wars, which is actually very important, because price wars, from what we have learned academically, is not all about what we read it from textbooks, because that is with the basic assumption, as we repeat, with that everyone in the all stakeholders, everyone in that business ecosystem or environment acts rationally, which does not actually happen. which might not actually happen. It's not does not happen, might not actually happen in the real business world. So so far we have already discussed in this first part of the panel discussion what price wars are exactly, with very nice inputs from all our speakers, and also what are the reasons for price wars. Could be advertent, could be inadvertent, but and one of the biggest issues that Mr. Saurabh and everyone else echoed with that feeling is that it's basically issue of rationality that we have already mentioned. So you misunderstand information, you misconstrue information, and it could also be related to irregular reporting of figures on financial statements, right? Which is misconstrued by managers, and that leads to a price war. In the second part, we'll be discussing about how it affects the dynamics of competition in an industry, and finally we'll be understanding how some companies, with examples, how some companies, firms, businesses, how they tackle price wars. So we'll see you after some time in the second part.